Master said, we are to purify our minds. Could we turn the sound up just a hair? I don't know if it's my ear or the world. The Master said, we should purify our mind. With the purification of our mind, we cease from superficiality. We cease from foolishness. We cease from avidya, from ignorance, and thus are capable and able to do good. Such really is the teaching. All the mantra, all the meditating, all the fasting, all the sadhanas really are directed towards an attempt to purify our mind, that we may remove from the consciousness the negativities that allow us to mentally think that which is good, to speak that which is good, and to do that which is good. Now some people would say, yeah, so what? Why? What's the purpose? Americans like that word, why. The secret of life is really the secret of power or energy. But the secret of the spiritual life is powerlessness. You probably were not taught that God was powerless, and it would probably upset some of you if I say it. But the problem with most of us, we have too much power. A strong personality that's materialistic and therefore incapable of the appreciation of art, music, literature. Or some of you have a great deal of power and your mind is simply too vague. It's lost over onto the other side, the Neptunian place, and you cannot switch it and bring it over into manifestation in the physical place. The value of life is to be balanced to the degree at any moment you can shift to the Ida or the Pingali, to the mind state or the material state. This is extremely, extremely important. It's in the old idea of the Buddhistic martial arts, the idea of centering, of being centered so that you can shift your weight from one foot to another as you need it. Well, in yoga, the foot of the guru is not his physical feet, but the base chakra, Saturn chakra, the Ida and the Pingali, the ascending and descending pranas, or the prana apana if you prefer. One must become comfortable with this world. It's not an easy thing to be. But once one has found comfort in this world, one is able to transcend this world. And it is the transcendency that brings the goodness. As you know, the word God is simply a contraction. The Greeks called it the good life. You would call it the godly life. What one is trying to do is to bring the base energies, the Shakti, that exist in the gonadal area of your vehicle, and for some people, men in particular, it never leaves that area. And we're trying to lift that energy up, lift it up to the holy mountain, to the place of holiness, the altar, whether it's Mount Meru or some other sacred mountain. And what people do not always understand, and maybe what teachers do not always teach, is there are 3 elevators, if I can modernize it, 3 elevators going up to this Mount Meru, but only one touching the peak. Anytime the energies veer off to the left or right, these 2 outer elevators, these difficult pillars that are not towards truth, aiming towards it but not reaching it, are angular energies called Shakti. And so if you are in an emotional state, if you are in a desiring state, if you are in an insecure psychological state, and if you have any ability to lift these energies, they will lift, but they will veer off to the left and right. And of course they will produce some interesting hallucinations. But who's interested in hallucinations? Of course they will produce some power force and power fields. But who's interested in that? If the CIA, if the KGB, if Section 12, if the Home Division has taught us anything, it is that power begets power, and there's always someone who's more powerful. And what we're trying to do is simply to center our lives, to bring that energy up straight to the single eye, to the Ajna chakra, to the pinnacle of the peak of the holy mountain. And that can be done only if you are comfortable with yourself and with your life. But if you're comfortable with life, you will be comfortable with yourself. And if you're comfortable with yourself, you will be comfortable with life, because there's only the life within. There's no life outside of you. There's no reality outside of you. You are within you. And so the necessity of trying to do good, not because you're going to get so many Knuppen points or goody points or brownie points and therefore get to heaven. Heaven does exist. There are 49 that I'm aware of. But I assure you they're all temporal, just like all the hells. There are quite a few of those, but they're all temporal. There is, in yoga, only consciousness. There's no existing outside of consciousness. If you're familiar with philosophy, you understand that this is called idealism. It has nothing to do with being idealistic. It means the world is a consciousness. If there was no mind, I could not hear that. If there was no mind, I could not feel that. If you had no consciousness, you could not hear that. If I had no mind, I could not take these strange ink blots on this piece of page before me and grasp some concept of understanding. The consciousness moves up 49 and down 49. It moves through 108 stages or states of consciousness. 49 are considered very heavenly, which simply means enjoyable. Now, what I consider enjoyable, many men would not appreciate. And what some women enjoy, I consider hell. It is, to a degree, subjective. Some people like pickles, and some people like olives. Some people like kiwi. What's a kiwi? I thought it was a little bird, because I used to see it on top of shoe polish when I was a kid. They tell me it's a fruit. I always thought it was shoe polish. But anyway, obviously if you take 49 and 49, you almost get 100, right? 98. And so there are 10 states of consciousness that exist in the middle pillar. There are 10 states of consciousness that do not belong to heaven or hell, that are not transitory, that once reached can be sustained forever. And these are 3 times 3 plus the totality. And it is the movement up to these 10 states of consciousness that in some lower sense can be symbolical of the chakras or the sephiras or the 10 churches of Asia, of which 7 are mentioned in the New Testament. The movement of any mystical system is a movement to understand that wherever we are, we're inside a state of consciousness, and that the, using Western terms, the falling from the Garden of Eden is simply falling from the awareness that we are in this state of consciousness, and that we do have the capacity or the ability to resolve the problem. I remember when I was very, 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 very young, and I had read the only book in the city of Chicago on yoga and yogurt. And I had fallen out. Did I ever tell you, my brother told me that I should jump out of the 3rd floor with an umbrella, that it would be fun, and we had seen it in comic books, and so he thought he would be a scientist and test and see if it worked. And so he had me jump off the roof of the house, which was 3 stories, so it was really 4 floors, 40 feet. And he figured if it worked, he would try it. And of course, I had full trust in Anna, full trust in elder brother. So I jumped in full faith, in absolute belief that I would float down. But it didn't work out that way. Fate failed me. And I come crashing down. And let me tell you, though no bones were broken to anybody's knowledge, we were too poor to find out if we'd take them to the doctor. But I know the body was sore. That was Sunday, and Monday I was in school, and in those days we had 3-story schools, and you walked to the 3rd floor. And I remember walking up the floor, and talk about anguishing. It took me what seemed to be 5 minutes to get from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor, or from the ground floor to the 1st floor. It was a German school, European if you prefer. And I realized that I wasn't going to make it to the 3rd floor in time, and fear entered my soul. And then I started thinking, well, if all that stuff they said about yoga, I could just enter inside my mind, and I would radiate the Shanti, and the whole body would be healed, and there would be no pain in the body. The muscles would function. And all of a sudden I realized I was running up the flights of stairs. The pain was gone. And I said to myself, wow. And of course I sat down on the 3rd floor and thought about it and got into trouble because I was late. We exist in consciousness. And if we can re-enter into the consciousness, there's a great deal we can do to heal the pain of the body. Symbolically, psychologically, and in my belief system, definitely physically. The problem is we're somewhere out here, wherever out here is. Our energies are pranic in the sense that they're coming up and out, always running out there, out there, out there. Like something out there is real, that's more important, that's where wealth is, that's where love is, that's where everything's at. And occasionally you say, it's up there. And the answer, it isn't. But it is almost impossible. It's like riding a bicycle. You got a full speed, you've been going for an hour, full speed. All of a sudden you decide you want to stop. The bike, even if you stop pedaling, it's moving along at a good clip. Even if you put the brakes on, there's momentum. And so we have sort of a psychological momentum of the energy going out. And the outgoing energy keeps us from returning back into the center of our being to heal our being. Now, one approach is, as long as we're out and our energies are out in the world, to do good to the world. Whether you want to call it unselfish love, whether you want to call it wisdom, whether you want to call it Kriya. But the idea is to recognize that to make peace with the world, with those external symbols that seem to be real that aren't. And slowly to become more and more comfortable with the so-called external world. And then slowly, by all of these spiritual disciplines, these sadhanas, the mantra, the meditation, the study, to slowly begin to bring the energies back in, to bring them back in, to bring them back in, and to balance them, to bring them back in and to balance them, bring them back in and to balance them. Until all of a sudden we realize we are, as it were, setting within ourselves, within this enormous globe of consciousness, that momentarily now we can at least slightly soften or slightly balance, and to make the mechanism of our mind more sane, to be in control to the degree to be a bit more peaceful, a little more serene, a little more quiet, less apprehensive, less fearful. And when that happens and we open our eyes, we now see the world differently. Not because the world has changed, but because we have changed. You have your pink glasses and everybody's pink. Put on your green glasses and everybody's green. You put on white glasses and everybody's white. You put on spiritual glasses and everybody's spiritual. As your state of consciousness changes, the world around you changes. If everybody's fighting and you're fighting with everybody, all you got to do is mona, we call it silence. And stop bitching, stop moaning, stop screaming. And you'll drive everybody so insane they'll leave you. Or they'll be silent with you. But the world will change. To soften one's karma is to bring yourself just a little more into balance so you can see just a little more clearly. Yogananda Ji used to say he'd like to see shoot 'em up bang bang movies. He'd like to see the unfoldment of the cowboy picture. Because he said, in every cowboy picture, sooner or later, there's a saloon scene. Someone comes in, orders a drink, and someone orders a drink for someone else, and immediately the person says, I don't drink with strangers. And immediately they face each other and they're about to slap leather. Smile when you say that, partner, he would say. And then he would say, someone's going to die. Possibly you're going to kill someone and be hung. Possibly you're going to be killed. What a waste of consciousness. And I used to add, we have to come back to potty training, and I don't want to do that again. I really don't. And so we look at Yogananda's symbol simply that too often we're too ready to slap leather, we're too ready to fight, we're too ready to destroy or to be destroyed on things that are absolutely inconsequential and meaningless. And so we need again and again and again to rebalance ourselves. Karma is a psychological thing. I remember being in one of the big wars. I was a medic because I felt it was better to try to put them back together and shoot them apart. And I had this marvelous, wonderful experience the first day on the battlefield of dragging a man off the battlefield with no legs and no arms. Quadriplegic, first time I ever seen him. Sitting there in the bed, bleeding all over the bed. And I'll be honest with you, I consider myself detached. I was not detached. I had compassion, and yet he saw in me probably pity. Whether it was true or not, he saw it in me. And he looked up at me and he smiled. That's truth. He smiled and he said, hey, all my life I wanted to study. No one would let me. They'll let me now. And I said, wow. Those old sages of old are right. Attitude is all, isn't it? I saw a man have his right arm ripped off once and he said, I'm left-handed. And I also have had the experience in this life of a woman who was trimming her fingernails and one of them ripped. They were real long and she was delicately, and then it broke, and 2 hours later she had killed herself. And I realized that in modern psychology they would say that the fingernail really had very little to do with her suicide, that it was the precipitating cause. And I said, I don't care what you call it. Had the fingernail not broke, she wouldn't have killed herself. And they say, well, yes, but some other cause would have been the precipitating cause. And I said, yes, but it wasn't. It was the fingernail. Attitude is all. And so, you're in a good mood and someone hollers, the boss hollers at you, hey, he's having trouble with his mistress, his wife, or both. And, you let it go. It doesn't bother you. You're not in the best of balanced state of consciousness and someone says something to you that really isn't that bad. And, oh, yeah? You're going to roll up your sleeves and you're going to do battle. And if you understand that, you understand that the real problem's here in your head, in your consciousness. This is the controlling factor, not the event out there. Some people are deadly afraid to be laughed at. And the enemy is not the laughing. The problem is the attitude within them. And so we need to return into ourselves and to balance ourselves. In yoga, we climb the spine. In Jewish thought, we ascend Jacob's ladder and we come up to Bethel. We call it Baal, they call it Bethel. It's the same place. It's the place of the high point in your soul, the high mountain, the holy place. And you sit there, and when you can truly sit there quietly, consciously, You realize that you are, as it were, enclosed in this globe of light. It may be flashing, it may be multicolored, multi-hued, multidimensional, but that when you are there, you have control over your mind. You can change the thoughts, the fears. You can soften the karma, if I can use the word. And when that manifests, there is a change within you. And if I can be very direct, the change does bring a sense of gratitude. Is that a permissible word? I hope it's not a negative word. But you feel, in some sense, special or blessed or fortunate that the spiritual cancer has been removed. You feel good. You feel balanced. You're more sane. You're more harmonious. But then you don't go into meditation. Oh, you open your eyes and you open your hands and you come back out into the world to love the world, to care for the world, as you see it to be important. You teach the world without being obnoxious. You teach the world without preaching to the world. You teach the world, hopefully, by radiating your humor and your love and your understanding. And that allows you to bring even a greater degree of harmony and peace with the world, so that when you choose, when your duty is done, when your work is done, you now can go deeper within yourself, deeper and deeper and deeper, and from that particular standpoint, ultimately transcend this world. The realization truly is, the Master truly said, that how you deal with this world is how you're going to deal with your next world, whether it's conscious or unconscious. There is a tendency in spiritual circles to look down upon religion, as good as it is, because it is negative. The tendency of most religions, and I hope you hear the word tendency and most, the tendency of most religions is to tell you, it's not real. This is unreal. And next time you get that impression, stand by the edge of one of the express lanes. Close your eyes and ears. Count to an odd number, 237, and run across. And watch how neat and orderly the illusion is. Watch how neat and orderly the sequence of events occurs. It may be an illusion, but it's the most orderly illusion you'll ever see. Heaven isn't there, and in mysticism, the goal isn't to get to heaven. The goal is to get to yourself. The goal isn't to get holy. The goal is to manifest yourself. The goal isn't for me or anyone else to say, let me show you my beautiful heart. It's not the goal. The goal isn't to show you my treasure. The goal is to reveal to you your treasure, which some of you don't know you have. Contained within you, in this globe of light surrounding you, within you, are unbelievable merit and skills from the past. We are now, at this millisecond of time, in your eternity. If indeed you are immortal, and I say you are, then this moment, this millisecond of time, is part of that immortality. Today is part of the chain of immortality. How you live today is how you're going to live tomorrow. How you live today probably is a degree with how you lived yesterday. But you can't do much about yesterday. Yesterday's a memory. Tomorrow's but a dream or an ambition. But today, right now, this moment, the moment of truth, Satyam Satya, the truth of all truth, right now, you have consciousness and you can change it. Now I realize that some people want to change it to become wealthier or healthier or prettier or smarter. And the answer is, do what you want to do, but in all you're doing, be peaceful. There's a difference between saying, I think I'd like to get married. Yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do. Okay? Now there's a difference between saying, I'd like to get married. Oh, I got to get married. You want to marry me, somebody, anybody? You know, Mr. Chair, you know, I'm in trouble. Or, you know, of saying, I think I'll get married. No, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, thank you, Mr. Jones. And recognize that there's a right one for me and a wrong one for me. Is that being too direct? Or that maybe I'm the wrong person for some person and maybe right for someone else. My mother said it best of all the sages. When you rush into marriage, you rush into a mistake. Okay? And most people rush in case you don't know, I'll tell you. Now, so I don't get into trouble with all the women. I definitely, absolutely believe in marriage. I'm not joking, I'm serious for change. I think, truly, that if you are trying to find the spiritual life, marriage will do it. If it's a bad marriage, it will drive you into thinking and meditating, and you'll get wisdom. And if it is a good marriage, as it ought to be, if it is carefully, wisely planned, two people can do much more than one person. Now, obviously, being a man, I'm probably looking a bit from a man's side, but there are things the wife can do to give you time to think and study. And hopefully, as a man, there are things that you can do to give the woman time to do what is more important than the dishes and the floors and the cleaning. Those are important in this world. If you ever went to someone's house that they think it's not, you'll know how important it is. But as important as those are, there still is in the modern world, in India and China and this country, there's this attitude that those are not important and women shouldn't have time to think. And my mother said, the greatest of all sages said, "She who rocks the cradle rules the world." So if the world isn't being ruled very well, maybe we didn't give the women enough time to think and meditate and contemplate, or to be free. But I do believe that if you are careful and cautious, if you prepare yourself to become a good spouse, it will definitely, truly speed forward your spiritual growth. As you see the wife, you should see God. As we say in the Upanishads, the wife is not loved because she's my wife. The wife is loved because God dwells within her. Husband is not loved because he's my husband, but because the Great Spirit dwells within him. Firstborn son is not loved because he's firstborn son, but because God dwells within him. And right on down the line to friends and gurus. We are isolated, most of us, and we have lost contact with the stars and the sky and the clouds and the rivers and the streams and the plants, which is a great loss spiritually. We definitely have lost contact with the animal realm. We don't talk to them, we don't listen to them, we don't learn from them. Most humanoids just eat them. Come here. Dinner time, come here. Is the best they can do. That's the only relationship they have. But if you look closely, you will find that human beings have even Saturnized, they even have constricted themselves, that there's very little contact with humanoids. Women link with women, men link with men. There's a battle of the sexes, and most people don't know their next door neighbor's name and then care less. But the gifts that come through form, whether that's a dog, a cat, a pet, a woman, a man, a husband, a wife, a mister, a mistress, a spouse. And we need to realign ourselves, just like the great Nordic teachings and just like Hiawatha. The symbol there was Hiawatha. Remember the story of where he talked to the sky, the trees, the flowers, the animals. And someone who will say, is it literal or is it symbolical? And I would say it's really both. You are part of, not apart from life. You are part of, not apart from life. But you have departed from life. You have isolated yourself into even away from yourself. Again, forgive me. It's like a man, most men making love to a woman. He feels her love, or he feels his love for her in 0.1% of his body. And that's where he feels it. And that's all he feels. He doesn't feel it up here, and therefore he treats his car better than he treats his wife, I think. I'm sure there's exceptions. And as I see some wives treating their husbands, I would not want to be their husband. But What it means in true spiritual sense is what it means is we have so constricted ourselves that some of us find ourselves only in our heart. And so we have no logic, have no truth. And one of the great truths is, though the heart is good, the heart must always be subservient to consciousness, to logic, which you may disagree with me. You know, if the heart has no control, what you will do is you'll give all your money away, take off your clothes in the middle of the street and give your clothes to the first beggar that comes by. I don't know if you know it, you're in trouble. You say, oh, but how holy. And I say, maybe religious, but not holy. Maybe religious, but not wise. Maybe religious, but not a sage. As you deal with this world, you're dealing with all worlds. As you deal and harmonize and balance yourself according to the laws of the creatures of the world you're in, the plane of consciousness you're in, the time and space you're in, so you will be able to deal with any plane that you're able to get to. The secret is you must be comfortable here in this body, and then you can move beyond the body. When you're comfortable here in this lower realm of consciousness, then you will be comfortable and capable of going up. But if you're uncomfortable with yourself or with the world, then you're not so much moving towards something as you're running away from something. And that we call angular energy. That angular energy produces psychoses and neuroses, insanities, and oftentimes religions. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. Hey, I don't think so. The right hand offend thee, chop it off. Hey, no, absolutely, I tell you, no. I am a jealous God. Hey, I don't know what God they're talking about, but God isn't jealous. I am an angry divinity. It ain't so. It just is not so. Priests, rabbis, swamis, religion, and people who conceive concepts of God may be jealous and may be angry. But God's not angry. God's not jealous. And truly God doesn't need us. And we certainly tend to feel we don't need Him. But life we do need. And so yoga, we say, is a way of cosmolizing our being. Not only bringing into the world that which we are perceptive of, but to expand that perceptiveness and constantly balance it and lift. Balancing and lift. So at some point we can understand this world. I told you, I'll tell you again. 30 years or so ago, I was driving down the outer drive. There was a dog in the middle of the outer drive with a broken leg. A car obviously hit it. I slammed on my brakes. I jumped out. I almost got killed. My car almost got smashed up. I almost killed somebody else. I picked up the dog and I felt so good I would say I'd saved the dog. And I was running towards the side of the road with it. And the son of a gun bit me. And I dropped him. I apologize. It was an automatic response. And I looked the blood coming out of my arm. And I said, oh my God, what the hell are you thinking? And he just smiled. And I looked at the dog, and the dog was going, Arr. I said, bye. But from that, I saw momentarily the shock of it, a satori, an insight, that the dog was life. The dog was a human being. The dog was the world around me. The dog didn't know what hit him, literally, symbolically, and otherwise. And most of us don't know what hit us. Well, we know we've been hit. And anybody gets too close and says, hiya! And the answer is, once upon a yogi time, there was a cat. A kitten and a cow. Hey, you know the story. And the farmer used to every morning milk the cow. He'd make 3 bowls of milk. He gives one to the cat, one to the cobra, one to the cow. And one day the cobra said, Mr. Farmer, you love the cat more than you love me. The farmer says, no, I love you all. Every morning I give you milk. Yes, but you pet the cat and you never pet me. The farmer says, well, of course not. You're a cobra. But I love you. I give you milk every morning. Yes, but... And the farmer says, no, I love you all. Well, the cobra got very discouraged and went away. Well, this got the dumb Taran, the cow, thinking, I don't care what they say about serpents. That serpent's right. He pets the cat and he never pets me. He scratches the cat's ear and everything. He's more affectionate to it. He loves the cat better than me. Now the dumb Taran cow thought, I wonder why. That's a dangerous thing to ask. I wonder why. And he observed the next day how the cat, after having the milk, always jumped up on the farmer's lap. And so the cow said, aha, that's the secret. The next time, as soon as I finish my milk, I'll jump up on the farmer's lap. And of course, that's what he did. He jumped up onto the farmer's lap. And of course, the next thing, one ambulance was going off this way to the hospital or the morgue, I'm not quite sure. And the other one's going off to the meat factory, if you know what I mean. And it's called Triple C, CCC. And the answer is, there are people who are wounded, and you have to be careful of how you approach them. There are people who are cobras, and they will bite you just because of their particular nature. The answer is, despite this, to know the nature of things, to understand that what you need to do is help, not how you want to help the world, not to help the world when you feel good and want to help the world, but to help the world when the world needs help, and how the world wants it. So when I was a young child, everybody hated me. There was some mystical formula in the world that every time someone's birthday came by, they hated me. And it took me years to figure out why. My mother taught me, do unto others as you'd like others to do unto you. And so every birthday I'd go buy the heaviest book I could buy and I could afford, wrap it up and give it. And, they'd say, oh my God, another lousy book. And they were very discouraged. They wanted candy, handkerchiefs, or something. They didn't want books. And the realization was, don't do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Do unto others as they want to be done unto. Think about it. Seriously think about it. Help the world, help your friend, help your spouse, help the enemy as they need to be helped, when they need to be helped, not when you feel it's the right time or the way you want to teach. That truly is what life is about. That truly, honestly, is what unselfish love is about. Now, I repeat, we're down here, and I don't know if you know it or not, this is not a very high realm. According to yoga, this is one of the hell realms. If you haven't noticed, read the newspaper, watch television news for a little bit, and you'll see this truly is a hell realm. It's not a very good place. Now, you are all here because you have sin. I'm here because I'm to save you, you see. We're all here because of heavy angular energy, this included, okay? Not as a punishment. I hope everybody hears it. But because of what in simple terms we call kama, a desire. We have picked up some desire and we got magnetized by the desire. And before you know it, the desire caused us to lose our self-realization, caused us not to be aware. And so we begin to think in strange scientific, theological terms like, you hurt me, you did it to me, it's your fault, like God's fault, the guru's fault. And the answer is, whatever has come into my life that is good, I did it for myself. And to accept that is to realize, whatever bad came into my life, I did it that also. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the creative principle for me. Now obviously, some of you, because of your wisdom and love, you have helped me. And because of my wisdom and love, I have helped you. But I know people that when you try to help, they will not accept help. We call it pride. I don't know what you call it. It's called in yoga pride. Americans love to give gifts. They do not like to get gifts. Well, she thinks she's superior. Did you see what she gave me? It was expensive, is the way people emote. Most people emote. And the answer is, if we can recenter ourselves, get rid of all these angular energies, then we will be able to ascend. And in our consciousness, as Muni, as an enlightened soul, we will easily move to higher realms of consciousness, deeper insights of wisdom, and begin to understand the cosmic scheme of things. It's hard to see the cosmic scheme of things. It was hard to understand last week unless you were able to expand your consciousness a little further than normal and understand there's a giant scheme. Life is like an alphabet. And we're at R. I'm not sure that it goes A, B, C. We're at R. And we're judging everything by R. R, R, R. Or some of you maybe I. Some of you M, me. But there is so much more to the scheme of the cosmic evolution than most of us see. And so only if we are balanced here can we ascend upward to see more clearly. This world is a place where you should study. It is a school. This world is a place of joy where you should find happiness. This world is a place where it's a factory. You may not like it, but it's a factory. A place where you can work. As you move forth to fulfill the cosmic duties, the 12 cosmic duties or the tasks of Hercules, as these become balanced and as you become more comfortable, you will close your eyes and with no effort, you will find that you are lifting, rising, levitating to deeper, inner, higher states of consciousness and can understand that sometimes certain things of life have to be given up. But we choose to give them up. They are not taken from us. Like a woman chooses to be loved. It's quite different than forcing her to love you. It's a great deal different. Unselfish love, the ability simply to try to help. How you help someone more than anything else is to teach them. There is no higher way. I did not say preach to them. I did not say lecture to them. I said teach them. Teaching is best done very informally. Science, modern science if you prefer, tried to teach us one thing, that everything is caused. Whether we talk about the cells in our body, the atoms in a copper piece of tubing, or galactic galaxy out in space. Everything is caused. And yet, despite a couple hundred years of science, not too much, I admit, we as civilization, east, west, north, south, we like to take that only up to a point and say, oh yes, but. And we refuse to admit. We tend to think, oh yes, but God caused that. That's the will of God. Oh yes, my wife caused that. That was the will of my wife. Oh yes, my guru caused that. That was the will of the guru. That was the Param Guru's fault. And the answer is, everything that happens to you was created by you, good or bad. And that you do have control. If you're driving your car 100 miles an hour and you see all of a sudden an animal in front of you, you slam on your brakes. That car will not stop instantaneously. And you should know, I'm sure you know, don't take the foot off the brake. In the same way, when you truly become spiritual, when you truly begin to walk the path, you begin to realize that nothing's going to happen, as a rule, instantaneous. It may take a minute or two before something happens. But you have to stop the momentum of the thought forces that the world's out there, the reality is out there, that the control is out there. And it's not. The control is within you. No one can kill you unless you choose to die. I tell you, it's true. And it's hard to grasp that, because the consequences of the logic can be, to an unevolved soul, frightening. Mate devo bhuva, pate devo bhuva, atiti devo bhuva, guru devo bhuva. We have in our lives 4 great teachers, and they will teach us according to our willingness to be taught. Or, saying it in modern terms, the world is here to love us, but really, we don't want to be loved. Or we put all sorts of qualifications. Someone called me, I shouldn't tell you this, about 3 o'clock this morning. He said, oh, I'm just getting a divorce. I'm just getting a divorce. I said, what's the matter? He says, well, my wife's just uncooperative. She doesn't love me. Then he went into this long spiel of how she had to put a wig on, and do I have to go further? All sorts of funny things that she had to do. And I said, well, I'm using a symbolic name. Adam, it seems to me that you're in love with some image, not with your wife. Why can't you just love her? Oh, you're just like her. You don't understand. Click. So then I could go back to my meditation. Life, in the simplest word, life is here to love you. Truly, I know it's hard for some of you to grasp that. And truly, I tell you truth, that life is here to give you everything you want. The truth is, whether you know it or not, you're unwilling to accept the love, and you're unwilling to accept the gifts. Or you put qualification. Well, now just a minute, God, I'll take that vision, but don't change my personality. Don't tamper with this perfection that I am. And so the vision doesn't come, all right? The boss wants to give you a promotion. You don't want the promotion. I don't want any responsibility. And then 3 hours later, if not 3 days later, you're bitching, moaning, and complaining because you haven't got any money. You haven't got a raise, so to speak. Think about it. But in all you're getting, get discipline, get self-discipline. Purify your mind. It is the ultimate act of unselfish love. In the purifying of your mind, you will cease to do foolishness. In the purification of your mind, you will cease to do superficialities. In the purifying of your mind, you will cease avidya, ignorance, and then good can be done. And that which you do unto the world, you do more so unto your own self, here and now, and also there and later. That's the best I can do in the meditation this morning. I hope that it has given you some insight. Someone will say, well, how do I go about all of this? The answer is simple. Study, read, theology, religion, philosophy, yoga. Think, reflect, observe, watch the world, meditate, observe your breath. Just get peaceful. And enjoy each moment of breath. This now is an instant in your immortality. How you are now and what you strive for now, you shall be tomorrow. And what you are tomorrow, you will be into infinity. It is not holiness that is the goal. It is not even goodness. Believe it or not, it's called santosha. It's a hard word to translate. Bad translation, a good translation. To be content is to be established in a state of santosha. I close with this thought. The Master said, as long as you have a desire, you can only enter into the treasure chest of God. When there are in you no more desires, then you have no need of God. Then and only then shall God appear unto you, within you, to bring not the gifts of God, but to return to you, yourself, to yourself. Namaste. Shanti. Could we pick up the music for just maybe a few minutes, and each of you would like to perchance to meditate and grasp a thought that can carry you through the week? When the music is concluded, the meditation will be finished. Shanti.